Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Today I want to spend some time talking about the new map proposal. It just got posted for official approval. It's being reviewed right now. It's here. We can vote on it. 6 days away from, I guess, being decided. So it came up yesterday. I originally was a yes on this, but I want to talk about why I'm probably a no. And I want to look at the post together and I want to talk about what it has to say and why I would be leaning towards no. So let's talk about it. If that sounds interesting, stick around, stay tuned. If you want more Splinterlands content, consider liking and subscribing. Also, I got to say shout out to splintercoach.com. Splintercoach.com will track your personalized battle history. You'll see which summoners you're winning with and losing with, how and when you are winning or losing, in which overall rule sets and in which mana caps, etc. And that can help you be better and win more and have fun while you're analyzing data. $5 a month, splintercoach.com. Check them out. So the proposal is currently passing 83% yes. It's 139 million SPS have said yes to it. We are past the point of we have enough votes saying yes, but the problem is now, do we have 66%? We'll see. It looks like we probably are going to get a pass, but I think I'm probably voting no. I want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. I guess I'll say as fast as I can and why I'm thinking what I'm thinking, and then I just want to unpack some of the notes from this post that are pointing me to that conclusion. The conclusion that I'm drawing is that this would be negative because ultimately, while I do want Soulbound reward cards to one day be made transferable, I do think it's important that NFTs in Splinterlands be meaningfully rewarding for your time and attention, and that means that there be a price associated with the value. I think long term, that's my hope and my intention with all of the assets, including things like titles, including things like, skins on cards. I really think one day we should and we will get to a place where all of the things that you can own in this game will have value in some sort of usefulness, in at least transferability. But that's a longer term goal. And in the short term, I see bigger issues like card supply, extensive card supply around Chaos Legion, and even Riftwatcher packs that aren't selling. And we're trying to get to Rebellion, and then we're also talking about mini sets. And it's, yes, land is going to be a massive card soak, but we have to really wrestle with the reality that I don't think most of the land plots are going to be activated when 1.5 launches. I heard recently Hardpoint was on doing an interview with the People's Guild, and he was talking about land 1.5, and he was talking about land surfing, and how that's going to activate more of the plot's land. And he speculated that we'd probably get within the 10 to 30% of the land plots being activated, and that's assuming that the land surfing is launched, I guess, when it's supposed to with 1.5, and that it draws in new partnerships, new participants that don't necessarily own the plots but then want to farm it because they have access to earn through that process of land surfing. That interview was interesting, but it was telling because from the development team standpoint, there's a smart man, Hardpoint, who is saying it's not going to be most plots of land that get activated. And that's assuming we do things like land surfing, which invite new participants that don't even own the land to activate the land. That's new. That's an innovation. That's an attempt to broaden the scope and impact of land. But yet there's an expectation that most 70, 80, 90% of the plots of land will not be activated. And I've said previously, I don't know how much. I think I said for sure less than 50%. I think 25 to 50% would be anything in there would be, in my mind, a real success. And that's going to be huge because it'll be DC being staked into the land. It'll be cards being, staked onto the land, taken off the marketplace. But we still have millions of unopened Chaos Legion packs. We've got millions of Riftwatcher packs that haven't been sold. We're talking mini set. We're talking Rebellion. New promo cards are going to be launching. I mean, there's tons of card supply that is not currently going to be dealt with and not have a way to be dealt with because land isn't going to launch it isn't going to come out of the gates and be maximally effective. It's going to largely launch. It's going to trickle from the starting line. I believe that there'll be some people who will launch really well with land, and I hope I'll be one of those, maximally impacting and activating the land that I have. But you look at content creators like Gank, who I love, and I'm going to be trying to move my lands in with his lands. But I mean, Gank has said he owns a region, and he said, you know, he's partnering with different people like myself, hopefully, to, you know, get them to come in and trade lands with him so we can all be under one umbrella. Love it. Stay tuned for more of that in the future if you want to know why I'm doing or what I'm doing with him. But look at that. It's like one of the best, you know, most invested landowners in this game, person who loves this game, who's been here forever, believes in it, owns a ton of cards, and he's essentially admitting that he doesn't have the assets, the resources, the time to manage it effectively at launch. So that is one example of how even a deeply invested and attentive player such as Gank lacks the resources, the time, and the capacity to launch land well. So again, I think we end up expecting a ton from Land 1.5, but I think Land 1.5 and the card staking and the SPS and DAC staking in it is going to be less impactful than we want it to be. And then come to add to that now this proposal, which would allow people to put Soulbound reward cards and Gladiator cards onto land to quote unquote manifest them so that they can work the land for a certain DEC or DECB burn cost. It means that there's additional card supply that will fight to fill those spots. And again, I just articulated lots of reasons why. One, there's not going to be a ton of land launching when land launches. And then two, there's a ton of cards in there, and therefore the adding more cards to that pool of farmers isn't necessarily the wisest idea, in my opinion. That doesn't mean I think transferability for these cards is bad. I like, and this isn't even about transferability. This is just quote unquote manifesting a card so that it can farm the land. It says down here somewhere that this will not make, let's see, cost will only allow cards to be used as workers on land. However, it will be applied to the cost to make cards unsoulbound and transferable in the future when that option is available. So this proposal is not about making them transferable, but it's hinting that this is part of the picture. There will be a cost associated with that. This is the value you invest in this step would theoretically apply to that future iteration and making them transferable. And I can be for the idea of cards being transferable, soulbound cards being made transferable, soulbound cards being available for land farming, or gladiators doing either of those same things. I can be for those through a DEC burn mechanism, but not for it currently because of card supply and the way I expect land to launch. So I hope that makes sense. That's the crux of my argument. It's that I think we already have a ton of cards. I think Land 1.5 is not going to launch as big and as huge as we wanted to. And I think if we want Land 1.5 to have a bigger impact on card pricing and the market appreciation of the assets that already exist, we should refrain from adding a new library of assets to the card supply, namely Soulbound cards and Gladiators, which would be for the first time ever, useful outside of the game, outside of your account, using them for rank experience for battles in Splinterlands because of this manifestation process, right? You would be able to use them on the farmlands. That would mean you're no longer needing other cards on the farmlands. Now, I think that's my full articulation of my point, but I need to, raise up critiques against my own argument because there are other considerations. Like one, like I said earlier, and we'll just touch on it briefly, I am for Soulbound cards and Gladiators eventually being made transferable with tons of caveats. I want to know what the cost is. I see that they don't yet know what that future transferability will cost. They're just saying that whatever this ends up being, 2 times the CP is what it'll cost to make them manifested so that they can farm the land. And then this value will be applied to the future transferability. And if this value 2 times CP that you use to make your cards manifest ends up being adequate, that you will then automatically make them transferable if that number matches. But do you see how we don't know what the future cost for transferability will be? But I think I am for transferability because, again, like I opened with, I want the rewards in this game to reflect value for your time and attention. I think that's integral to what we are aiming at within blockchain-based video games. and something being fun and rewarding. So I'm for that, but just not now because of all the reasons I already laid out. However, I have to admit, when we talk about this cost being 2 times the CP, you end up recognizing that in order to release or to manifest your gladiators or your soulbounds, the amount of DEC you're going to have to burn doesn't make any sense. You would just go out and buy cheap cards off the marketplace because it'll be cheaper. If you understand that, for instance, gladiator cards, let me see if I can show this quickly. So I'm in here looking at my own cards, gladiator. We could do this with the soulbounds also, but let's just focus on the gladiators. So here we're showing the gladiator cards. And if we just look at, for instance, a common wall stop, chimney wall stop, 1 BCX has a power of 10. It has a, first of all, this would be totally inadequate for farming purposes. It wouldn't move the needle. But if you recognize that, okay, let's, you're talking 10 BCX, sorry, 10 power per BCX, and it's a common, so you could use 400, right? 400 makes a max. You're talking an estimated power of 4,200 times 2. You're talking 8,200 DEC to get this. No one has a max chimney wall stop, but you see my point. It would cost 8,000 DEC to activate, to manifest a card like this, to make it farmable. And first of all, there's a lack of gladiators, but then second of all, the cost of 8,000 DEC would be, you could spend that on cards and get power for cheaper. You could buy, for $8, essentially $8, you could buy a lot of different cards. Look at the legendaries, for instance. I mean, the reward legendaries would be really easy to buy. You could buy Jin O'Shanis. Right there, there's 3,000 power, $5. Now that's a little bit less, but you could get, look at the max copy, 5,775 CP, $9. $1 more. And I think you can get a better price here. Look, 82 cents. And then Jin O'Shanis is like one example, but you don't need to do Jin O'Shanis. He's not the cheapest. You could just look at legendaries and look at Harkalaw, 65 cents per. So you could really, really easily and effectively and cheaply put more CP on your land by buying cheap reward legendaries than burning DEC to make your gladiators transferable or your soulbounds. Like I showed the gladiator, but again, who has maxed out gladiators? So you could go focus on the soulbounds. Let's go there. We'll look at the Chaos Legion, the reward cards, and if you just grab any of the soulbounds, let me see. Here's a Soriel Bale. Okay, he's a gold foil, so let's not look at that one. For Soriel. Here he is. This is a legendary. 1 BCX is 500. I think that's the same as, yeah, 1 BCX is 500. So Harkalaw is the same sort of impact and collection power as would be a soulbound reward. So again, why spend what'll be 5,500? You'd have to spend 11,000 DEC to get a max level soulbound legendary manifest, 11,000 DEC. Or you could come in here and buy 11 copies of Harkalaw for $8. The DEC is 8,500 DEC. So it's cheaper to just buy cards off the market. So I'm critiquing my own argument. You see, it would be easier to buy the cards off the marketplace than it would be to make these cards manifest, and therefore, you might argue, well, Dwayne, you're making a stink out of nothing, because the amount of cards that are going to be put into this manifestation process is going to be quite trivial. Therefore, it's not a big issue from new card supply, you might argue. But I would say, well, then why are we doing it, for one thing, right? If there's not a lot of cards that are going to be done, they're going to be activated in this way, manifest in this way, then why are we making a proposal about it, right? If it's going to help, let's talk about it. But if it's not actually, no one's going to use it, then why are we doing it? And I think ultimately we're doing it because long term they want them to be made transferable. So it's like, this is almost like a future-proof proposal as far as I can see. Like it's aiming at one day in the future we will make cards like this transferable, and we want to start thinking through what that would be like. And we're saying 2 times the collection power is the price point. We want that burn mechanic or to demand in order to make a card transferable. I actually like that target. I'm saying 2 times CP makes a lot of sense, but just again, I don't know why we want to add new cards to this manifestation process, to the land farming process at this time when we already have a saturation upon the marketplace, a lack of player base. Yes, we've seen significant growth over the time I've been enjoying this game, but still we're still such a fledgling of an operation. We're still barely getting, we're just getting started with what Splinterlands is. And so again, I just don't see the logic of this proposal. And as I've read the wording of it, just seems to me like, I don't know, I don't see why we would do this at this time. I think ultimately I want to have future conversations around how we would make Soulbounds and Gladiators transferable. I'm less excited about Gladiators. I think they were opened as always being, non-transferable. That was always at least my understanding of what a Gladiator would be. But truly, blockchain-based video games should mean that you receive a reward for your time and attention, and therefore I get why we would aim at making them transferable. I'm just saying right now, with the card supply being what it is, the player base being what it is, I don't see a logic in this. So I'm actually a no. And maybe it doesn't matter because it looks like most of you are all yeses, or many of you are yeses. But I wanted to share my thoughts on this one, and that's why I'm voting no. So I'll leave it there. But let me know in the comments below whether you think I'm missing something. And I mean, who cares really? I mean, if it's going to pass without me, then it's going to pass without me. But I don't see why we would say yes to this. You are going to spend more to make those cards manifest than just buying cards off the marketplace. If you were forced to buy cards off the marketplace, that would help our card prices. We have a ton of abundant cards with Chaos Legion, Rift Watcher, mini sets, Rebellion that are either here or coming. I just don't get it. Why now? Later on, let's talk about transferability. Let's talk about burn mechanics to make those transferable or quote unquote manifest. Today, this proposal doesn't make sense to me. Thanks guys for your time and attention. I hope you have an amazing day. God bless.